Hello, I'm Mr. Pibbles, but you can call me Peter, and welcome to the next episode of our challenge park here in Planet Coaster. Now, we had a minorly eventful last episode, as we got a little bit more of this sort of cafe area done. That still needs a bit of work, but we can look at that at some point. I got some theming done around here, but most importantly, I got this in, which is our lovely little tiny eye, the Windy Miller. And yeah, you can see it going round, and with the advent of that, we are finally turning a profit. Which means one thing. Let's run the time lapse. Yes, hello and welcome to the time lapse. How are you doing? It is good to have you here along with us. And we are starting off this episode by playing around with the front of the Windy Miller, kind of putting a little bit of a sign in here at the front. Now, I would usually kind of go, oh, do I build a custom sign or something for it? But I think, you know, something like what we've got there works. It's like small and not very remarkable, so I think it does its job relatively well, which is quite fun. So yes, we've got a number of things planned for this episode, some of which I know, some of which I don't want to tell you yet. It'll just have to be a surprise. I need to get a hold of my words as well. But yes, you can see us putting in these pillars here. I know I kind of got rid of the colourful pillars from the front, but I thought here they'd be perfect. And what we're doing at the moment is just going over this queue line and adding a little bit of something to make it pop. I didn't quite like how, you know, over that side there's all that space. So I thought, what better way to do it than by just putting in path, and luckily that is something we can do now in Planet Coaster 2, so I am relatively happy with that. And it took a little bit of jimmying and fixing over here, but finally I was able to make it work in the way that I wanted to, and kind of just putting in a bit of hay here and there to kind of cover things up. I think that looks alright, and kind of gives it a little bit more of this sort of theme around it. You can see there I look in the thing and people are sunburnt, and I think that's mostly because there's a lack of cover over queue lines and stuff. Obviously down at the HMS Victorious, I believe in episode 2 we went and we put covers over that. So, do we go put covers over this? Well, I found this, the canvas archway from the Wild West stuff. Obviously this was ported over from the original game, and I just thought it looked alright. Kind of, if we build this little tunnel, then there's, you know, a little stretch of path where people aren't going to be, you know, directly in the sun if kind of this gets massive queues. And you can see me here toying with the idea of lantern chains. I will go through the park at some later date and add all of these different lighting things in, but for now I'm just leaving it because I don't need to see this at night quite yet. That is a job for when we've got money, when we've got stable income, which, to be fair, we do now, but it's it's something we'll leave for now. You can see me now porting over this lovely little shack that I built in the last episode for the ride operator booth of the Slippery Slope, and getting it here into the Windy Miller kind of, it just again adds to the overall style and consistency of the park. You know, you wouldn't have many different styles, you know, at first you'd have kind of these smaller things that, you know, you port over, you build it out of a box. It's basically a shed from the local garden centre. And you can see me here expanding out, which means we are looking at something else. I wonder what. While you can see me kind of struggling to try and get this sort of path and terrain area sort of sorted, I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm doing here. You see, I really wanted to have a ride up here on like another level up. So it's like how I did with the HMS Victorious, that's sunk into the ground. I wanted this to be a level off the ground, because that's something I wanted in this park, is levels, because levels are fun and I don't play around with them enough. And here it is, our very first roller coaster in this park. And along with the Sorcery Pack that came out just the other week, this nice little kids coaster came along, and it is relatively cheap, it's relatively small, and it is perfect for a project like this. So you can see me here trying my hardest to get this roller coaster to work. Now, I will warn you right off the bat, do not get attached to anything that you're seeing, and you will you will realise why in about 5 minutes. But yeah, I'm not the greatest when it comes to building roller coasters in this game. I know it's a whole game built around roller coasters, and yet I can't do the basic roller coaster thing, yada yada. But I'm just better at kind of putting in pre-built things and calling it a day, but I do try my hardest from time to time, and this is me trying my hardest to get something that feels realistic, that feels like it works, and that people will enjoy, because ultimately that's what this is about. It's all about getting a ride and getting things that people like. You know, why would I build a ride that's not going to have much success with the public, and that people aren't going to enjoy? So here I am building a roller coaster, and I have had some idea in terms of theming and naming for this roller coaster. I've had that since finishing this episode and doing the whole kind of outro and stuff for it, but you'll have to wait till the next episode to find out what it's going to be called and what it's going to be themed. But yeah, it's that sort of thing of it's a kids coaster. It doesn't need to be too deep, but at the same time, kind of with what I'm going for here, now that I've got a little bit of money to play with, maybe I can do something a little bit kind of bigger and better with it, and that's something you will start to see the further we get into this coaster. Once we get round to looking at the station, kind of bigger and better is what I try to go with in comparison to what we've got already, but all while keeping it relatively similar. And yeah, kind of you can see my process here. It's not very interesting, but it is fun. Kind of, I know I mentioned it in the first episode, but my main roller coaster growing up was the Hornet at Flambards in Cornwall, which was one of only 2 Z-era Hornets in existence, the other being the Flight of Icarus at Park Asterix, which still exists. So yeah, it's interesting knowing that I'll never be able to ride my first roller coaster again, but it does still exist in the world somewhere under a different name, because they had exactly the same layout. And you know when I said earlier to not get attached to the layout? Well, this is why, because I looked at it and I completely scrapped everything I had in favour of this slightly newer layout, because I didn't want to make something that was going to be, you know, kind of poor performance all round. You know, we're hitting a 2 excitement, 2 fear, 0.5 nausea or whatever. And while the final stats aren't great for this, it's better than I thought it would be, and ultimately I think it works better for this park. You can see me here having a little bit of a play about with heights and stuff. That is gonna be a little bit dodgy, I am not gonna lie, but it's fine. If people can make it under that piece of track, then you know, it's not like we'll have any giants or anything like that riding. So yeah. But yes, you can see me here getting in all of these banked corners, the bunny hills, everything like that, just to kind of make it pop, as it were. I am a big fan of kind of these these new helixes that I can build in now that, you know, you're able to height snap to 5 meters in 5 degrees in the game. And it's just a very useful tool because, you know, I've always been a person of, I'll snap at the, 15, 30, 45, 60 because it's just easier. But here I went, actually, I can make it's going to be a lot more constructive and easy if I make it on these sort of angles. And you can see I've put my block breaks in, so there's sort of the brake run at the end there, just after it's gotten slow, and, you know, we're heading back to the station here. A part of the ride which does need a bit of tuning, as you'll see here. It comes over the hill and doesn't make it into the station. So, you know, I go back and completely rework. I put in some drive tyres at the end because, you know, who doesn't like some drive tyres? And again, we will sit here and we'll watch it, and it'll get to the end, and it can make it in, which can't complain too much. So, obviously bringing over power so that it gets empowered. I am always one to beef with the moving things around in this game because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And there we can see the stats, which are alright. I am somewhat happy with this, considering, you know, it's the first roller coaster in the park. It's a junior coaster, so it's not going to be great stats, but I know it's got some great moments throughout. So, kind of, you can see me here getting power in, which is always fun, and at a bargain price of $13.11, which, you know, would I necessarily pay that for this? No, but, you know, you can't complain too much about it because it's getting you money. And I've got some plans for this little bit within the next episode. You know, we're going to build another bit of a plaza with more seating and all that, so we can have more souvenirs, more food, more drink, all of that. But you can see me here kind of building in these sort of ramps up to the rides. It's something that I like to do. You know, I could turn around and make these all stairs, but as much as that would be, you know, fun or whatever to build, it's not accessible. And as much as, you know, this is just a video game, you know, I don't have to worry about it being accessible. I like the concept of keeping everything realistic in sort of that sense. So you can see me here getting in all of the slopes kind of down to the ground level, so wheelchair users and people with ambulatory issues are able to make it up to the station to ride the ride, which we'll get into the name and theming in the next episode. And you can see me there looking over at the challenges, because we've just finished a challenge to build and open a coaster. That bit, of course, being this coaster that we're now putting the station on. And we are keeping the theme and style of the station very similar to all of the rest of our buildings in this park. And while it's a little bit, you know, bigger than everything else and a little bit more kind of, I was going to say impressive, that's not the right word. I was also going to say garish, that's also not the right word. It's a little bit grander than kind of everything else would be, but then I think it's worth it because it's, you know, all in service of, you know, this coaster, and again, it keeps the rustic charm that we're going for this park. And yeah, so this is something else that came out with Update 8, which, you know, released the Sorcery Pack, but it also released pathing overhauls, and this was one of them. The ability to kind of snap your cues at 2 meters and also kind of properly make switchback cues, which I don't think I've spoken about so far, but it's a very, very useful tool because, you know, you're here, you're building, and it actually just allows me to actually put kind of proper building pieces and all of that kind of in here. And again, I'm using my favourite aged roof for this part of the park. I say this part of the park, for this park. That aged wood roof is my absolute love and joy at the moment. And you can see me doing a bit of a double-heighted roof on it. So kind of you can see here, you know, it gets up to there. And then there's the extra layer on top, which I'm doing with these wooden pillars because it just seems, you know, a little nice, as it were, and again keeps that rustic feel. I always think this feels a little bit like a barn that would have an open roof. I say open roof. The roof isn't open, but you know what I mean. In the kind of, you know, a barn would have these wooden poles and a slightly open roof in order to kind of aerate the place and kind of keep air flowing, as it were. And I know I don't necessarily need to keep air flowing in a building like this, but kind of it just makes it feel a little bit more kind of rustic again. Like, not to keep repeating my buzzwords, like, you know, ooh, rustic, ooh, kind of nature, ooh, farm, all of that. I'm throwing all these words at you, kind of get... But I think it's working. And you can see me now getting in kind of the side pieces for this, for this roof, and I do like the way that it turns out. I will need to come back in the next episode and just finish theming up this entire building. But again, that's something I can do, you know. We've all got our strengths. Mine isn't necessarily theming, but I like it. And you can see me here putting in these, which are roofing beams, sort of your support beams that you'd have in these buildings to keep the roof up, because, you know, there's no internal walls on this. So kind of having this set of beams in kind of throughout the building to keep it and have this shell, I like it. And kind of, I think when you're inside, it works really well. And as I say, I've got a number of things that I need to do in the next episode, but I hope you have enjoyed watching me kind of put all these little bits together. And I believe we are coming up to the end of our time-lapse segment here. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll get back to real time. Okay, welcome back to real time. I know it's very, very exciting. So what we've done today is we've themed up our Windy Miller to kind of have this nice little theming around it, kind of making it a little bit more easy on the eyes. And we've done this, which doesn't have a name yet, and is going to go through the majority of its theming in our next episode, but we have an alright roller coaster and a little bit of a station. So yeah, I'm thinking this is a good place to leave it, so enjoy. If you enjoyed, then please like, leave a comment, maybe even subscribe if I'm lucky, and I will see you in the next episode. Ta-ta. Roll that outro.